Have we found the greatest thing in Star Wars? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Disney Plus original series Andor Season 2. This is created by Tony Gilroy and will be a non-spoiler review of the series. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what Andor is, or you have not seen the first season of Rogue One, the series follows, of course, Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, who navigates the tumultuous world that is the after Revenge of the Sith, right before A New Hope, where the Empire has basically had a firm grasp. They are a very fascist government, and they are basically in control of almost the entire system. Well, this series, if you watch the first season, shows kind of the rise of the rebellion and kind of the machinations of what that needs to do. Well, this second season is a really interesting one because each episodes each week, so there's 3 episodes per week, follows 1 year before the Battle of Yavin. So the first week is the 4th year, and the last week is, of course, the first year, the year before. And so what this last season does, because it is the last season, it shows how the rebellion is on the rise, how they are getting their kind of places and pieces put into the mix, and how Cassian works with the underground rebellion to eventually take on, get the Death Star plans and stuff like that. We, of course, have people who are played by Genevieve O'Reilly. We have Stellan Skarsgard. Kelly Stoller. We of course have Adria Arjona, and yeah, it's a mix of people who are on the, of course, the Empire side and of course the Rebellion side. And once again, season 2 is basically the 4 years leading up to A New Hope in Rogue One in a lot of respects. So it's really difficult to not want to talk about spoilers with this series because there is a lot to talk about. But as we all know, the first season of Andor was one of the best things that Star Wars has ever put out. That is not really that difficult because Tony Gilroy is one of the greatest living writers working today. He's very talented. Rogue One was something that he kind of took over as a creative and made that a really special film for a lot of people. Andor has become this kind of outlier when it comes to Star Wars, which is not created the best of series when it comes to TV series. It's been kind of hit or miss, to be fairly honest, but there has been some good stuff like The Mandalorian. So the second season is here, and like I said in my synopsis, this is a series that is running for 4 weeks only, but it's 12 episodes, so each week is 3 episodes, which follows 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, which is BBY. And it is a really interesting take because, as I'll get into my review, I may have some issues with that, but it doesn't take away from what I feel about it. But Diego Luna has come into his own as one of the more interesting, more fun characters in the Star Wars universe. The fact that this series has created what I call a really interesting perspective in the Star Wars universe that has never really been done before, which is classism and the nature of like the have and have-nots and the nature of people who rise up against a situation. We've seen the rebellion, but we've never seen it on a street level, a surface level, and that's been a really interesting thing. We've never seen the other side, which is very conflicted with the Empire. We've always thought of them as like Tarkin and Vader and the Empire itself. But what the series does is it gets down to the nuts and bolts, the really war aspect of what it's like for an underground rebellion to rise up and how's that affect. So that's kind of what the series is doing. And once again, you know, when you have Kyle Soller, when you have Adria Arjona, when you have Stellan Skarsgard and Denise Gough and Faye Marsay, it's a good collective cast of individuals. You know, people from Game of Thrones, you know, people who have worked in the industry for quite a while, Stellan Skarsgard, Fiona Shaw, and stuff like that. It's just it's a really interesting thing to take. But that leads into the second final season. And for my honest take is this is the greatest thing that Star Wars has ever done. Or at least for this Disney generation. You know, you could say like Empire and stuff like that. But what I think Andor has done, what Tony Gilroy and company have done, he also has his brother Dan Gilroy involved, is create something truly groundbreaking when it comes to Star Wars. He takes away all the mythology, all the fantasy, and he adds real stakes to something we know how it's going to play out. If you've seen, of course, Rogue One, you know what happens to Andor, you know what happens to these characters. But adding new characters into the mix, ones that kind of disappear from the series, seeing how they play out their stories, especially with Arjona, who is a really interesting arc in this series. It's a really fascinating take on this franchise. I think it's one of the most gut punchy when it comes to its like realism. I think it's hard to watch at some points. I think it's brutal. I think it doesn't have the strongest of starts, in my honest opinion. I think it's a little weak in the first 3 episodes. But where it goes, of course, you have like Miro, and of course you have Rail, and then you have the Mendelsohn character and stuff like that. And you watch kind of the nature of like some of these people may not agree with a lot of what's going on, and kind of the nature of the struggle between the two sides and stuff like that. I mean, you see an individual like Cassian Andor in this season who's having to deal with situations that are very unfortunate. Like, he's a guy that has a love interest with the Arjona Bix character, but he's having to deal with the fact that he's part of this rebellion. I love Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, who it really is kind of struggling to keep herself from being part of the Empire while also trying to be part of this rebellion, because there's a struggle with watching all these people that she's working undercover with, and then watching the people that she is trying to hide from, and then the nature of like the mechanics of politics and stuff like that, and how this this Empire has kind of stranglehold this whole situation. It really is another level of storytelling that Star Wars really hasn't had before. I mean, it's a really authentic, really kind of real approach to this series, and it is scary to watch. It really is. Once again, when you do the first 3 episodes, it's fun, it's entertaining, but the stuff with Genevieve, the Mon Mothma character, that kind of stuff doesn't really work. It takes a while to get going, especially with Cassian Andor's character, kind of how he gets back to his people. It has some fun moments, especially there's a cool action sequence at the beginning of this season. But it does take a few episodes. So definitely wait till you get to the second section, which is the second week, because it definitely picks up. But this series goes places that are brutal, that are violent, that are questionable. I mean, Andor's doing questionable stuff. The Empire's doing questionable stuff with this place called Gorman, which is this planet that has this mineral that the Empire really wants for their, of course, Death Star, if you know what I'm talking about. But the kind of nature of how a fascist government, a group of individuals like the Empire, and these people who don't want their country or their place being destroyed, how that rises up. So there's really interesting stuff there. There is a moment where this series goes so insane, so dark, so brutal in its nature of what it's trying to do, that it actually made me gasp. To be fairly honest, it actually left my jaw open, because it is doing this series, and what Tony Gilroy is so good at doing is bringing characters into the mix who have such, what I would call, split ideologies. What they believe in and what they do is so at odds with one another. But there's an episode, it's episode 8, which I think is one of the best things that Star Wars has ever done, period. It is crazy to watch, to be fairly honest. I'm not saying like the whole season is not great, but episode 8 of the series, which I think comes in the 3rd week, and actually 7, 8, 9 are some of the most brilliant storytelling I've ever seen. I think they're written by Dan Gilroy, who of course did Nightcrawler, and I think I'm glad that Lucasfilm and Disney and all the crew allowed this series to happen, because it helps flesh out a lot of characters. Once again, Mon Mothma gets a huge boost to already a great character arc that Genevieve O'Reilly has done. Cassian Andor gets a huge boost to his character arc, so that you kind of really feel sad for him when he dies in Rogue One. This gives a huge boost to the characters that you will never see again, or you may see in a future story. It just gives a huge boost to this franchise that takes it to all different levels of intrigue and storytelling, and gives us characters that are so multidimensional and doing so many interesting things, and watching the Empire struggle to keep hold of a collapsing situation, and watching how the story eventually kind of bumps into Rogue One, and how people like the Stellan Skarsgard character, how he is so in your face, but he is so committed. And then watching Saul Guerrero's character be so kind of terroristic and stuff like that in his aspects, and it's such a amazing thing to watch. It is such a beautiful series to watch. It's a very gorgeous CGI story. It's a very gorgeous storytelling story. It's a movie, or I'm sorry, it's a TV series that, though my only complaints are the first 3 episodes, and then I wish each week was a season. Because my only issue with the 3 episodes is you lose a lot of context because you have to move through it so quickly. So when you get to like, let's say the 3 years before the Battle of Yavin, you're only seeing the group for like maybe a couple weeks or something like that at the most. And doing a full year or full season like they did with the very first season, I think would have made this probably one of the greatest TV shows of all time instead of just being one of the greatest Star Wars shows ever made. And I don't think it's like a detriment to what it is, but I am so like committed. I'm so enthralled. I'm so entrenched. I'm so just awe-inspired with what Tony Gilroy and his crew have done with the directors and what they have created that I want more. Like, I guess you always want to leave them wanting more, but I love the nature of getting down to the nitty-gritty of, I guess you could say, politics, the lower class versus the upper class, the nature of like how this is so prescient today if you look at it from a certain side. It's very scary what these people believe and what they're doing. And the fact that they have one individual, an Emperor Palpatine, controlling everything, and you're watching these people just like take and take and take and take. And you're watching a rebellion slowly eke into the system. There are many thrilling moments where like you'll be in a point where they'll go back to, for instance, Coruscant, and there'll be like a mission they have to do, and you have to be stealthy, and there's so many stealthy type of missions, and it really is a remarkable series. It really is. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen when it comes to Star Wars. And I've been kind of a lackluster Star Wars fan for the last few years because of the simple fact I don't think the TV series has been very good. But I don't know what else to say without spoiling it, because once again, you kind of know, if you know Star Wars, if you know Rogue One, you kind of have to know Rogue One and kind of know where this is heading. But I think the journey that gets us there is really fascinating. I think it adds a level of like, in layers. It goes deep, it goes dark, and it goes very hard. That sounds weird, but it goes very hard on what Star Wars should be, which is about the rise of fascism and about the fall of people who take that fascism too far. Watching, for instance, this is, a lot of this stuff is based on Nazism and stuff like that, and watching the complete fall of this society is really fascinating. Like I said, you watch these characters, in secret have to do things, and you watch the Empire constantly fall over their feet, and watching them get their comeuppance and stuff like that. It's really, I cannot not tell you how good this is. Once again, if you have seen Andor season 1, you've seen Rogue One, you have no reason not to see this. It is a great season of television. It is one of the best I've seen this year. It is some of the best Star Wars ever made, if not the best Star Wars ever made. And that's coming from an individual who likes Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and A New Hope. And, for better or worse, The Last Jedi, it's remarkable. It really is. It's really great television. I can't wait for people to watch it. I can't wait for people to go gaga over it. And it's going to go down as one of the greatest. I think some people will say it's one of the greatest shows ever made. So we'll see what happens there. But as far as Star Wars, I think it's fantastic. I think it's worthwhile. And it's definitely worth your time and effort. So with that said, to close this review out, my overall score is a 9.5 out of 10. Once again, the half point is just because that first 3 episodes aren't particularly great. But I wish I had, seasons instead of 3 episodes per year. But 9.5 out of 10 for a very competent, very well-written, fantastic addition to Star Wars, as well as TV in general. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that is going to be my take on Andor Season 2, which will be out week by week for 4 weeks, 3 episodes a week. So get ready, be prepared. It is awe-inspiring. So there you go. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What do you think of Andor? What do you think of the Star Wars franchise? What do you like? What do you not like? All that good stuff. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this video, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.